The urgency, the anxiety, the disappointments, that nagging sense of falling behind, like something is missing or broken inside you, none of it is as real as it appears. And what's most unsettling is that, at some deep level, you've already agreed to be here. You made the choice to go through this. You chose to feel fear, sadness, isolation, and heartbreak. As strange as that may sound, this is exactly what Alan Watts suggested. He said life is like a theater, a drama in which you are not only the audience but also the actor. The trouble is, you forgot. You became so immersed in your character that you began to believe it was you. You lost sight of the fact that pain is part of the story, that disorder is part of the design. And now you live as if everything is final, as if every setback is total defeat, every challenge a disaster, rather than just a passing scene. But what if the fear that grips you isn't the real threat? What if the real issue isn't feeling, but resisting the feeling? Watts spoke of a metaphysical kind of bravery, the strength to face pain and continue moving, not because you're numb, but because you understand that this is all a sacred play. Not a shallow game to be mocked, but a meaningful one where even your suffering carries significance. Think of how often you've been caught in loops of worrying, like your thoughts are peeling an endless onion, always another layer of stress beneath the last. You worrying about your finances, then your health, then your future, your relationships, the world. And somewhere deep inside, you feel like dropping that worrying would make you careless, foolish. But Watts pointed out the opposite. Worrying doesn't prove your awareness, it reveals your entrapment. You're stuck in a role you don't even know you're playing. You react, you resist, you struggle, forgetting the most important truth, that on some level, you chose this. And the way out isn't through force or resistance. It's through remembering. Remembering that this is just a performance. That even fear is part of the story. And when you truly accept that, something within you shifts. Pain still happens, but it no longer owns you. Fear still arises, but it doesn't define who you are. For the first time, you start playing the game consciously. That's the goal of this video, not to convince you of a new philosophy, but to help you recall what's always been beneath the surface. You don't have to win at life. You just have to wake up. And if this idea of awakening resonates with you, stay with me because what's coming may completely transform how you see the world. You're on a stage. And the most fascinating part, you helped write the lines, chose the props, and stepped into character, forgetting it was ever an act. Alan Watts saw life as a cosmic drama, a divine play where the universe pretends it's not the universe, just to enjoy the journey of discovering itself all over again. You, me, everyone, we are all expressions of that sacred performance, that metaphysical game of hide and seek. But what does that mean in real life? It means that every event, from the smallest frustration to the most intense fear, has been placed in your path with purpose. Not to punish or test you, but to let you feel. To feel deeply, to feel scared, to feel heartbreak, joy, connection, longing, bliss. Like watching a film that moves you to tears or grips you with fear. You want that because deep down you know it's only a movie. And that's the awareness you've forgotten. Who said life should be all light? Without the dark, how would we ever notice the light? Without pain, happiness would feel meaningless. That's the reason we choose to forget. We let ourselves get lost in the story. We forget the reasons, the bigger picture, and start reacting as if everything happening is final, as if the stage is a cage, not just a scene. That's why so many people live in fear, always trying to stay in control, to protect themselves from things that were never truly dangerous. They've forgotten that fear, pain, and loss aren't mistakes. They are part of the experience. And once you see this, not as some nice idea, but as something that speaks deeply to your soul, you stop running. You begin to watch the play unfold. And for the first time, instead of fighting the storm, you simply feel the rain. But waking up like this isn't easy, because the ego, the role you play each day, doesn't want to let go. It wants to stay in charge. It wants to feel safe. It wants answers. It fears letting go. It's afraid to admit it's not really in control. And this is exactly where Alan Watts offered his boldest challenge to grow a new kind of bravery. Not physical strength, not the kind of courage used to face outer threats, but something deeper. The bravery to stop resisting. This is what he called metaphysical courage, and it changes everything. That's what we're going to explore now. If this message resonates with you, hit the subscribe button and follow the channel. Thank you for being here. There's a kind of courage most people never discover. Not because it's too hard, but because it asks you to question everything you believe about yourself and the world. Alan Watts called this inner strength metaphysical courage. And no, it's not about being fearless in the usual way. It's not about facing danger outside, but about confronting the emotions inside without turning away. It means looking straight at fear, at sadness, at loneliness, and not running. To stay with it, to feel it fully, to remain open. Real courage isn't about having no fear. It's choosing not to resist fear when it comes. Watts said that when we let fear exist without fighting it, without trying to push it down, it starts to lose its grip on us. That's the opposite of what we're taught. From childhood, we learn to hide from pain, to stay distracted, feeling anxious, keep busy, feeling scared, push it away. But these are just ways of escaping, and every escape gives more power to the thing we're running from. Metaphysical courage begins when you stop trying to fix your feelings, when you stop blaming yourself for being scared, for feeling weak, or for not being in charge. It starts when you treat your emotions like natural events, like fire that warms or cold that bites. They're not something you create, they just happen, and the more you fight them, the stronger they grow. The more you try to take control, the more helpless you feel. The samurai understood this. That's why they studied Zen. They were searching for a state of total presence so deep that even death couldn't shake them. They trained for what some called the supreme nerve, the ability to walk through emotional fire without hesitation, to keep going even when everything inside screams for you to stop. They understood that just beyond the blade's edge lies chaos, but it's right there, where you walk forward without resistance, that peace is finally revealed. And maybe you're thinking, but I'm not some brave warrior. I panic, I freeze, I run, and that's completely fine. Watts understood that, too. He once said, don't try to eliminate fear. Just stop fearing the fear itself. That's the moment when everything starts to shift. Because when you allow fear to be a part of the experience, part of the rhythm, it changes. It turns into energy, into flow, into life itself. But if resisting fear is what locks us in, then what keeps us stuck in this constant loop of stress and worrying? Why do we keep fueling fear, even when we know it's not real? That's when we enter what feels like an endless spiral, the next layer of illusion that keeps us trapped. Let's explore that. C. The anxious mind is like an onion with no end. Solve one issue, peel back a layer, and another one appears. You fix that, and a new concern shows up. So you keep going, always alert, always chasing a piece that stays just out of reach, always one more problem away. But Alan Watts offered a hard truth. That onion has no end, not because of what's in it, but because of how you relate to fear. You worrying about your job, your money, your body, your future. And even when things seem okay, something inside still can't relax. Why? Because you've tied your identity to being concerned. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that worrying equals being responsible, that it helps you prepare for pain or stay in control. But that's not true. Watts explained that chronic worrying is more like a habit, an emotional reflex to keep your mind busy so it doesn't have to sit in silence. Because in the quiet, a tough question surfaces: if I'm not worrying, who am I? Many people don't know how to exist without the constant buzz of fixing something. They feel guilty for relaxing, for pausing, for simply being. And the twist is, constant worrying doesn't solve anything. It only warps reality, makes problems bigger, and traps you in a loop of tension. You begin to live like danger is always waiting. Even when life is calm, your mind finds a new threat. The onion never stops regenerating, and the more you stare at it, the more it takes over. Small problems feel huge. Uncertainty turns into fear. Life becomes a mental battlefield. But there's another path. Watts urges us to change how we deal with fear and anxiety. He suggests we replace worrying with awareness. Then instead of resisting, we begin watching. Then instead of fearing uncertainty, we become curious about it. Because when you finally let go of control, life begins to reveal its deeper meaning. And that's the turning point. Moving from control to wonder. This changes how you see everything. But how do you actually do that? How do you go from constant worrying to real presence, right here and now? That's what we'll talk about next. One of the biggest myths keeping us trapped in anxiety is the belief that worrying means you care. How many times have you thought, if I stop worrying, something bad will happen? As if this non-stop stress is a magic shield protecting you from disaster. But Alan Watts breaks this illusion and offers a truth so simple, so bold, that few are ready to hear it. Life doesn't need to be controlled. It needs to be observed. Alan Watts suggests that instead of fighting our emotions, we should welcome them the way we admire a storm. When you see lightning strike the sky, you don't try to stop it, you just watch. You feel the power of it, and you surrender to the beauty of what can't be controlled. In the same way, he urges us to look at fear, sadness, and anger with curiosity, not resistance. This is a deep shift in how the mind works because we've spent our whole lives learning to fight back, to protect ourselves emotionally from anything uncertain, to fight battles inside that we can never win. But life, as Watts teaches, is not a problem to solve. It's something to be lived with all the ups and downs, all the mess, all the contradiction. Once you realize that worrying is really just a trick of the mind, a false way to feel in control, something begins to change. Your awareness starts to open to the simple wonder of being alive, the mystery of breathing, of feeling, of existing. What once seemed scary begins to feel like an invitation. Fear isn't something to kill off, but something to witness. Sadness isn't a flaw, but a color in the painting of life. But this shift doesn't happen just by thinking about it. You have to feel it fully, in your heart, in your body. You have to actually practice letting go of control. You have to let life be what it is, instead of reshaping everything around your fears. This practice starts with something very simple: how you feel your emotions. Because, as Watts reminds us, emotions like fear are just like heat when you get near a fire. They are natural. They happen on their own. They're not the problem. The real problem is that we try to stop them, change them, or fit them into some perfect image of how we think we're supposed to feel. So the next question is, how do we actually feel fear and all emotions freely without resisting and without becoming overwhelmed by them? That's exactly what we're about to explore. Fear is like the warmth of a flame. You don't choose to feel it, just like you don't choose to feel hot when you stand near a fire. It's automatic. But unlike heat, which we accept as normal, we fight fear. We try to hide it, push it away, or pretend it's not there. We're taught that fear is weakness, that we should be able to control every feeling, like pieces on a game board. But Alan Watts breaks this myth with clear truth. It's not fear that ruins us. It's the way we fight it. It's the refusal to let fear happen that creates anxiety, guilt, and despair. When we try to shut fear down, it doesn't vanish, it grows. It becomes heavier, darker, more overwhelming. Suppressed fear turns into constant worrying, panic, or quiet hopelessness. The real wisdom is seeing that fear was never the enemy. Fear is simply a natural response to the vastness of life. Uncertainty brings fear. The unknown brings fear. And that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The mistake is thinking that you need to get rid of it to be free. True freedom comes when you allow fear to exist within you, just like heat in your body, without trying to put it out, without trying to change it, without identifying with it. Picture yourself standing by a campfire. You feel the heat on your face. You don't fight the heat. You don't panic because the fire is hot. You simply feel it, adjust your distance if needed, and move on. It should be the same with fear. It shows up. You feel it. You observe it. You don't need to react. You don't need to interpret it. You don't need to create stories about what it says about you. Deep acceptance turns fear from something heavy into something that just is. It doesn't need to be heroic. It doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. Just be there, aware, feeling, embracing the full human experience. Here's the key point. Every time you suppress an emotion, you split yourself. You create internal tensions that drain your energy. But when you let the emotion flow, when you feel it without fear, you come back together. You become more whole. You reclaim parts of yourself that were hidden behind the armor of resistance. Watts teaches us that this is real alchemy, turning fear into presence, pain into inner strength, vulnerability into awakened awareness. And from this awareness, a new way of living emerges. A way of living where freedom isn't the absence of tough emotions, but the freedom to experience them without being trapped by them. Now, think about it. If life is a performance, if each emotion is just a brief scene, what role are you playing right now? And do you still need to identify with it? This is what we'll dive into next. Life won't stop challenging you. No matter how much you meditate, study, or try to strengthen yourself, the show keeps going. The scenes of loss, fear, joy, and sadness will keep unfolding, one after the other, like a river that never stops flowing. The difference is in how you cross that river, how you move through each scene, each emotion, each moment. Alan Watts reminds us that the goal isn't to escape the play. It's not to leave the theater. It's not to run from tough feelings or pretend you're not afraid. True awakening happens when you deeply understand that you're playing a game and that even tears and quiet cries of pain are part of the dance. You don't need to win at life. There's no trophy waiting for you at the end. There's no judge backstage evaluating you. You're here to live, to experience, to lose yourself and find yourself over and over again. To feel the heat and the cold, the laughter and the sorrow, birth and death, knowing that all of it is temporary, all of it is part of the divine play. When you stop resisting, when you stop wanting things to be different from how they are, something amazing happens. You free yourself, not because the circumstances have changed, but because your relationship with them has changed. You stop being a puppet pulled by invisible strings of fear and anxiety, and you begin to dance consciously on the stage of existence. Metaphysical courage is the ability to keep going even when the sword is raised above you. To walk through your inner hells without letting them paralyze you. To look at the vastness of life in all its chaotic beauty and say, I accept it. I am here. I feel everything. This is why this message is so important. In today's world, where we are taught to avoid pain at all costs, remembering that it's possible to walk through fear and not just survive it, but grow through it, is a true spiritual rebellion. Now, I want to hear from you. Which part of this message spoke to you the most? When in your life did you forget that you were playing a game? Leave a comment below. Your experience might inspire others who, like you, are seeking to awaken from this collective trance. And remember, the journey doesn't end here. If this message resonated with you, keep going. The next video brings more insights that build on the internal transformation we've started today. Don't skip this step. It's crucial because awakening is only the first step and the best is yet to come.